History doesn't just happen. It builds, one idea upon another, one brick at a time. To understand our world today, we must travel back to where it all began. We're heading to a sun-scorched land nestled between two mighty rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. The ancient Greeks called it Mesopotamia, which means the land between the rivers. It was here, in what is modern-day Iraq, that something truly revolutionary occurred. People stopped wandering and started settling. They learned to control the rivers, using irrigation to turn arid plains into fertile fields. This was the birth of agriculture on a grand scale, a moment that changed humanity forever. This agricultural revolution was the spark that lit the fire of civilization. With a stable food supply, populations could grow, villages swelled into towns and towns into the world's very first cities. Imagine seeing a city like Uruk or Ur for the first time, rising from the flat landscape around 4000 BCE. These were bustling hubs of trade, religion and power with thousands of people living together. To manage such complex societies, they needed new tools, they needed organization, and so they invented writing. It started as simple pictures but soon evolved into a sophisticated script called cuneiform, pressed into wet clay tablets. This was a giant leap for mankind. With writing came the ability to record everything, trade deals, religious texts, and crucially laws. One of the most famous examples comes from a later Mesopotamian ruler, Hammurabi of Babylon. Around 1754 BCE, he created his famous Code of Laws, a set of 282 rules carved onto a towering stone pillar for all to see. It was a foundational concept, a society governed by written, consistent laws rather than the whims of a powerful individual. The Mesopotamians were also our first true scientists. They gazed at the stars, mapping the constellations and creating the zodiac. They gave us the 60-second minute and the 60-minute hour, systems we still use on our watches today. This incredible period laid the groundwork for everything that followed. The idea of the city, the rule of law, the written word, the tracking of time. These are not just historical curiosities. They are the fundamental pillars upon which all later civilizations were built. The Mesopotamians were the original pioneers. They looked at a challenging environment and through sheer ingenuity and cooperation, forged a new way of life. They were the ones who first dared to build a world that was bigger than a single tribe or a single generation, setting the stage for the grand, sprawling story of human history. As Mesopotamia's influence rippled outwards, other great civilizations rose, each adding their own unique contributions to the growing tapestry of human knowledge. To the west, along the banks of the River Nile, ancient Egypt emerged. The Egyptians, inspired by Mesopotamian ideas of agriculture and urban living, created a society of breathtaking scale and longevity. They gave us the pyramids, monumental tombs for their god-kings, the Pharaohs. These structures were not just piles of stone, they were incredible feats of engineering, mathematics and social organization, requiring a level of planning that was simply astonishing for the time. Their hieroglyphic writing system and their deep understanding of medicine and anatomy also pushed human knowledge forward. The torch of civilization then passed across the Mediterranean to the rocky shores of Greece. The Greeks were different. While earlier societies were often defined by powerful kings and rigid priesthoods, the Greeks championed the power of the human mind. Think of Athens in the 5th century BCE. This was the birthplace of democracy, the radical idea that citizens should have a say in how they are governed. It was the home of great thinkers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, who laid the foundations of Western philosophy. They asked big questions: what is justice? What is the best way to live? Their curiosity knew no bounds, leading to breakthroughs in mathematics with Pythagoras and geometry with Euclid. But the Greeks, for all their brilliance, were a collection of fiercely independent and often warring city-states. It was the Romans who took Greek ideas and gave them an imperial scale. The Romans were master engineers and administrators. They built roads, aqueducts, and cities that spanned from Britain to the Middle East, uniting a vast and diverse territory. They took the Greek concept of law and refined it into a sophisticated legal system that still influences law codes around the world today. Latin, the language of the Romans, became the bedrock for many modern European languages. The Roman Empire created a connected world, a vast network for the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures. Each of these great civilizations was a crucial stepping stone. The Egyptians took Mesopotamian foundations and added monumental architecture and medical knowledge. The Greeks built on this, introducing philosophy, democracy, and a new spirit of rational inquiry. The Romans then took Greek culture and Roman engineering and spread it across an enormous empire, creating a shared world of law and infrastructure. They were not isolated episodes but part of a continuous chain of progress. When the Western Roman Empire eventually fell in the 5th century CE, it seemed as if the light of civilization might be extinguished, but the torch had already been passed once more. Just as the lights were dimming across Europe, a new and brilliant flame was being kindled in the Arabian Peninsula. This new chapter in world history began in the 7th century CE with the rise of Islam. From the cities of Mecca and Medina, a spiritual and political movement emerged that would rapidly create a vast new civilization, stretching from Spain in the west to the borders of India in the east. The Islamic world became a bridge, not only geographically, but also intellectually. It stood at the crossroads of the old worlds of Greece, Rome, Persia, and India, and it was uniquely positioned to inherit the knowledge of them all. The early Islamic caliphates, particularly the Abbasid Caliphate which came to power in 750 CE, understood a vital truth: knowledge is power. Unlike many conquerors who destroy the cultures they overcome, the early Muslim rulers actively sought out the wisdom of the civilizations that came before them. There was a powerful drive, inspired by verses in the Quran encouraging the pursuit of knowledge, to gather and understand the great works of the past. They saw no conflict between faith and reason. Instead, they believed that understanding the world was a way of appreciating the work of the Creator. This positive and curious outlook was the fertile ground from which a golden age would grow. The epicenter of this incredible intellectual movement became the new city of Baghdad. Founded in 762 CE, it was designed to be the heart of the empire and indeed the world. It quickly grew into a global metropolis, a vibrant center of culture, commerce, and scholarship that dwarfed any city in Europe at the time. Rulers like Caliph Harun al-Rashid and his son al-Mamun became great patrons of learning. They invested heavily in a project that would define the era, a grand translation movement. Scholars were dispatched across the known world to collect manuscripts on every conceivable subject: Greek philosophy, Indian mathematics, Persian medicine. These precious texts were brought back to Baghdad and other centers of learning, where they were painstakingly translated into Arabic. This was a monumental undertaking, one of the greatest intellectual salvage operations in history. Works by Aristotle, Plato, Euclid, Ptolemy, and Galen, many of which were lost or forgotten in Europe, were preserved, studied, and scrutinized. The Arabic language became the international language of science for centuries. This wasn't just about preservation, however. The scholars of the Islamic world were not mere librarians. They were critics, innovators, and pioneers, ready to build upon the foundations they had so carefully collected. At the heart of Baghdad's intellectual life was the legendary Beit al-Hikmah, or the House of Wisdom. This was more than just a library. It was a vibrant academy, a translation center, and a research institute all rolled into one. Here, scholars from different cultures and faiths, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, collaborated, debated, and pushed the boundaries of knowledge. It was a place where Greek philosophy met Indian mathematics and Persian astronomy, creating a powerful fusion of ideas. The House of Wisdom symbolized the era's commitment to scholarship, a beacon of learning that attracted the greatest minds of the age and fueled incredible discoveries across a huge range of fields. In the realm of mathematics, scholars made leaps that would be fundamental to the future of science. The polymath al-Khwarizmi, for example, pioneered the study of algebra. In fact, the very word algebra comes from the title of his book, Al-Jabra. He also popularized the use of the Hindu numeral system, which included the revolutionary concept of zero. We know them today as Arabic numerals, the very numbers we all use every day. This new system made calculation far simpler and more powerful than the clumsy Roman numerals used in Europe, paving the way for more complex mathematics and eventually modern computing. This mathematical prowess fueled extraordinary advances in other sciences. In astronomy, scholars like Al-Battani refined the work of the Greek astronomer Ptolemy, making more accurate calculations of the length of the year and the tilt of the Earth's axis. They built sophisticated observatories and perfected instruments like the astrolabe, a kind of ancient computer for navigation and timekeeping. In medicine, figures like Ibn Sina, known as Avicenna in the West, wrote the Canon of Medicine, a colossal encyclopedia of medical knowledge that became the standard medical textbook in Europe for over 600 years. They established the first true hospitals, with different wards for different illnesses, and pioneered clinical drug trials. The Golden Age was also a time of incredible artistic and cultural achievement. Islamic art, with its stunning geometric patterns, intricate calligraphy, and beautiful arabesques, adorned mosques and palaces. In literature, tales like 1001 Nights captured the imagination of the world. Philosophers like Ibn Rushd or Averroes re-examined the works of Aristotle, attempting to harmonize faith with Greek rationalism. His commentaries would later be hugely influential on Christian thinkers in Europe. This was a civilization that was confident, curious, and creative, producing a dazzling array of contributions that would enrich the world for centuries to come. It is easy to look at the ancient world as a distant, dusty museum piece, disconnected from our modern lives, but that could not be further from the truth. The journey from Mesopotamia to the Islamic Golden Age is not just a story about the past, it is the story of our beginnings. Every time we check the time on our phones, we are using a 60-second minute invented in Mesopotamia. Every time we vote in an election, we are participating in a system of democracy born in ancient Athens. Our world is built upon the foundations they laid, and their echoes are all around us, often in ways we don't even realize. Think about the fundamental tools of our society. The alphabet you are reading right now has its distant roots in scripts developed in the ancient Near East. The legal principle of being innocent until proven guilty was championed in Roman law. The very buildings we live and work in rely on principles of geometry and engineering refined by the Greeks and Romans. The Mesopotamians gave us the city, the Egyptians gave us monumental engineering, the Greeks gave us philosophy, and the Romans gave us the framework of law and infrastructure that would bind nations together. Without these building blocks, our modern world would be simply unimaginable. The legacy of the Islamic Golden Age is just as profound. When the European Renaissance began in the 14th century, it wasn't a rebirth that happened in a vacuum. It was fueled in large part by the knowledge that had been preserved, refined, and expanded upon in the Islamic world. The works of Greek philosophers and scientists, which had been lost to Western Europe, were reintroduced via Arabic translations. The numbers we use for all modern science and commerce are a gift from this era. The scientific method itself, with its emphasis on experimentation and observation, was championed by figures like the 11th century physicist Ibn al-Haytham, a true pioneer of optics. Learning about these periods is therefore essential. It teaches us that history is a story of connection, not isolation. It shows how ideas travel across cultures and how progress is a collaborative effort, passed like a torch from one civilization to the next. Understanding this long chain of human achievement fosters a sense of shared heritage. It reminds us that our modern globalized world is the result of thousands of years of human curiosity, ingenuity, and the courageous desire to build something better. By looking back, we can better understand not only where we came from, but also the incredible journey that brought us here.